Welcome to Conscious Living here at the Specially Produce Network. We are so glad you're Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Conscious Living Podcast. We are here live in the studio in San Diego with my favorite fly fishermen, Don Memmer and Luke Memmer. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, good morning.
We're so glad you're here. We're here to share with everyone the Zen of Fly Fishing. And what is that about, Don?
Fly fishing is the art of casting a fly with a fly line and a fly rod. And most people think it is exclusive to trout fishing, but it also expands into saltwater. And I'm a guide in Hawaii for primarily bonefish, although they're difficult to catch, but we catch a lot of trevally and other species as well. But I offer my services on the Big Island of Hawaii, and I've brought some equipment today. We are planning a trip. We're going to go to Baja on Saturday and fish for a week down there for rooster fish. Friday, we're going to be able here in San Diego to go fish for mako sharks, which is really exciting. They're big, beautiful creatures. And we'll get to catch those. And pretty much everything we do is catch and release. Sometimes we take mai or an ono or some of the pelagics that we eat, but basically we try to practice catch and release, and that's why I'm here. And I wanted to share with you guys what it was like to be a fly fisherman and what it's like to be a guide and some of our experiences. I'm also looking forward to fishing Sunday with my son here, Luke, and what we really enjoy is fishing together for Father's Day. So we're really looking forward to it. And we're going to take Ashley. She's going to hopefully catch her biggest fish ever.
That's right.
But I've got my family coming along too, and it should be a really nice adventure. And it's good when people get out with their families and get to experience the wonders of nature. And fly fishing is a very relaxing, beautiful way to do that and experience it.
It really is. And growing up with Don on the Big Island and fishing, my only story that I've had is being out on a big boat and catching a 21-pound aku bait fish that my mom then caught the 168-pound marlin, and that was really a beautiful experience. But that was several decades ago.
Yeah.
So I haven't been out in a while, and I wanted to share with everyone really what is the difference between fly fishing and regular rod fishing?
Okay. So with the fly, you are going to try to imitate a bait fish. So this, for example, is a baby mullet, and you would use this and tie that on the line, and then you deliver it with the fly. Most of the times when you're throwing bait, it just plunks in front of them, or a lure plunks in front of them, and you're trying to drag it in front of their face and entice them to bite. With the fly, it's more delicate. It drops it into the water. It's more natural presentation, and then it looks like a forage for them, and it doesn't scare the fish. So in that way, we get a lot of falls. We see a lot of the fish that are there, and it's actually most of the times the one that we really enjoy to do is called sight fishing. So we look for the fish. For example, bonefish, they get really big in Hawaii, 10, 15 pounds, and you drop a fly in front of them and try to entice them to eat it. So you have to trick them, as it were. Offshore, a lot of people, go out in boats and they troll around with lures and stuff. But what we do is to go fish fads, which are fish aggregate devices, which draw the tuna and the mai and the other pelagic fish around. And then I am a sales rep for Rainey's flies, and this fly is my Rainey's pink popper. It's a bubblehead, and it looks like a pelagic shrimp. So when you strike it, when you strip the fly back, this bubble at the top makes water shoot up, and it drives the fish crazy. So the tuna come up and will hit it, and it's really a wild bite. It's like a topwater bite, like with bass or panfish or something, but it's with 50-pound tuna.
Wow.
And they go down, and you fight them for an hour and a half. So it's really, really quite a thrill.
So you fight a 50-pound tuna
on a fly
rod.
Right. for an hour and a half.
And
But
this fly rod here in front of us is, what is it, about
this is a 10 weight. It's
eight
a
feet
9
long?
foot long,
9 foot
and it
long?
is a TFO. I'm also a sales rep for TFO in Hawaii. This is our new model. This is the Axiom 2, and this is our new reel, the Power Reel.
Wow.
And this is a 10 weight, so it's pretty good for species up to about 30 pounds or so. I have caught bigger species on a 10 weight. Normally, we fish a 10 and a 12 in La Paz. For bone fishing, we fish normally 8 weights, but I fish a 6 weight all the time. I try to give the fish an even chance, so I kind of always go undergunned.
And what does
Um,
that mean, an even chance?
well, when you hook a fish with conventional gear, if you're trolling a big reel and you've got a 130-pound main line and a 300-pound leader, chances are you're going to pull in that 20-pound mai, and that fish really doesn't have much of a chance. They know they're stuck, and you just can winch them in. And if you're catching a big marlin, 500-pound marlin, he'll take line, and that'll take longer, but they have an even chance then. So I like that when I hook a fish that I know that if I don't do what I need to, they have a chance of breaking off and getting away. So I really enjoy that challenge. And that's what fly fishing presents for you. Most people, when they start fly fishing, they begin fishing for trout. And trout fishing is really wonderful. Luke's mother-in-law lives up in Hamilton, Montana, and we get to fish in Montana a lot. And then my father was from Wyoming, and we've gotten to, trout fish all over. And trout live in beautiful places. I mean, it's wonderful, really quite an experience. I know here in California, I hiked like 9 miles to catch a 6-inch golden trout. And I don't think I'll ever do that again. But they live in really beautiful places and they're beautiful species, but they don't fight particularly hard. Most saltwater species would drag a freshwater species backwards and just drown them. They're that strong. So once you kind of graduate from trout fishing and you try your first attempt at saltwater, it can be a very humbling experience. But once you get the technique style down and learn how to catch them, it just opens up a whole new world to you. And
Wow.
the thing about fly fishing is you really appreciate the quarry and you value that resource. And so it just lends itself to people being aware of their natural environment and being respectful of the species that they're after. So, for example, bonefish, we exclusively practice catch and release with them. And I fished the Bahamas with Luke. I take groups down to Christmas Island, which is really, really quite a unique experience.
It sounds beautiful there.
It is, and the sun's brutal, and the people are really sweet and stuff. But the
And
fishing is just
and
fantastic.
Christmas Isle is an atoll
That's all.
north of the Hawaiian Islands.
Oh no, south. It's
South.
it's on the equator.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it's about 700 miles south of Hawaii, and it's this beautiful atoll. There's a flat there they call 9 Mile Flat, and when you're stalking the fish out on the flats, you have to be able to see them. So like you have polarized sunglasses. That's one of the tools that we use. And when we spot the fish, then we have to see which way they're going, and you kind of lead them. And so, like when I'm guiding, I will help my clients. We don't call them suckers with money; we call them clients. But we take them out and try to put them on a fish. But I don't want to catch that fish and hand them the rod. It's really their skill that they need, and so you're trying to help them improve their skills. So guiding is a lot like I'm also a teacher. I teach at Hilo High School in Hilo, Hawaii, psychology and history and economics and everything. But and I also coached. I coached soccer for 30 years, and Luke was a player for me at Hilo High. But guiding is a lot like teaching or coaching, and so you're
Hmm.
working with that person to make them a better fisherman and try to give them the tools. We also do foster kids, and I've had a number of foster children at my home. And fly fishing's really been great for them because they have to focus on what they're doing. They can't just change the channel when it isn't interesting anymore, and kind of go off. And especially the kids that are ADD. They always talk about giving them meds and trying to calm them down. But if you teach them to fish, they have to be in tune with their natural environment, and just that itself helps them to calm down and stay focused. So
Right.
it really is a beautiful experience. The neat thing about fly fishing is the techniques that you use. So, learning how to cast and learning how to see the fish, and then using the different flies, that match the aquatic animals, whether they be crabs or shrimp, or in this case bait fish. But also when you're trout fishing, you match the flies, the etymology. You have to understand what flies are coming out at different times of the year, and then we call it matching the hatch. So you try to put something in front of them that you can convince them that they'll bite. And then once you bring them in, you take great care to leave them in the water. You wet your hands. You get your one photo with them. You don't want to hold them up too long, but we really try to revive them and put them back into that natural environment. And I look at it as being analogous to teaching. You're trying to give them this knowledge that they got fooled, and that they won't have that happen to them again. So we basically educate our fish. And so in Hawaii, if it's one of the bonefish I've caught, you have to be pretty smart and be pretty much have your A game in order to be able to get one of these big bonefish. But that's the challenge of it, and again, that's what we really enjoy. Luke has gone to great extents to try to revive fish.
Yeah.
You want to?
So what does that mean about reviving fish when you pull them out or you catch them and you've worked with them to, cajole them to come closer to the boat and to come up and you hold them? Do they get limp? Do they?
So basically, when you catch a fish, rather any type of fish, if you want to revive it, you just put it back in the water. Make sure the water goes through its gills,
Mm-hmm.
and then that basically revives the fish. Some fish need to be like upside down to revive, but typically straightforward, streamlined, how they're meant to swim.
Okay. So you
Uh,
don't give them CPR.
I mean, it's kind of like CPR because they're breathing water, so you're
Right.
giving them water.
Yeah.
So
So you're
yeah,
helping the respiratory
yeah.
system come back
You
on.
just push them and let them go.
Okay.
Sometimes you want them to sink a certain way. Um, but yeah, you just make sure that they're also like if you catch one, make sure you throw it in like don't just throw it in like a pond or something where
So you
they
don't
can't.
just catch it and it's like half dead because it's not breathing anymore because it's breathing air.
Right.
And then it's like limp and you don't just throw it back in the water.
Well,
Well, yeah,
when you're fighting the fish, you also use ethical means. You don't take forever,
yeah.
and wear the fish out to the point where they're going to be
Don't
at
take off all the
exhaustion. Right.
scales. Don't
Yeah.
take
Yeah,
off
you don't
all
want
the
to take the
slime.
slime and the scales off. Right.
That's like taking off its skin.
Right.
Yeah. Because it has its microbiome right around the.
That's its protective layer, and
Yeah.
you open it up to disease.
Try not to kiss it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Doug.
Yeah.
You kiss your
Kissing all his
fish.
ladyfish.
But
We're gonna get some photos like that.
okay. But like an interesting one is the bonefish. When you hook a bonefish, they let off a scent while they're fighting.
Really?
And in a lot of environments, like I fished in Bahamas, for example, and when you bring the bonefish in, right when they're ready, they do a curve, like,
Ooh.
and we call it doing the banana. So they kind of curve to the side like they're done, and then you take the fly out and let them go. But sharks will do an S pattern and narrow down where the bonefish is, and
They
then they
give
eat
off
them.
a scent,
They
that's
give off
why.
a scent, right? They follow the scent, and then they
Wow.
kill them. So we've gone to great extents. If we see a shark in the area, we'll take the bonefish in the boat to another, like drive 10, 15 minutes and then let them go on a flat where there's no sharks,
Okay.
just to give them that chance of surviving.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
we try to do what we can to help them out, but
Yeah.
it's just the nature of fishing. I mean, you're actually helping out, the predators that are there, the barracuda and the sharks and whatnot. But that's their job. They're trying to eat the bonefish, and we're trying to catch them and save them. So, we're kind of at odds with each other. But
Right. Right.
it is important to respect the animal. Dorado mai are an interesting species. When you first hook them, they're silver, and when you first see them, they're blue in the water, and then they turn green, about the color of Luke's shirt. But in Spanish, they call them dorado, which is golden. And when they finally turn golden, they're tired, and that's when you can land the mai. If you bring one hot into the boat, in Hawaiian, mahi meant active, and mahi mahi means active active. So it's like an ADD kid. So if you bring them in the boat when they're green, they'll be bouncing all over the place,
Yeah.
and people can get injured, especially that are fishing conventional gear. They'll get a trailing hook or something into them. So most of these pictures with the mai that you see, they throw them in the ice first and let them die before they take a picture of them. They're just,
They're
you know,
too active.
yeah, they just jump all over the place. But they're another, they're a beautiful species too. That's one of my favorite to catch on the fly rod because they stay up and
Yeah.
they jump and they're really
Yeah,
beautiful.
we're gonna double up on that on Sunday.
Yeah, we got my doubles last time. The other fish that we target is the rooster fish, and we'll be down in Mexico. So this is a band that is by Sightline Provisions, and it has a rooster fish on there. And so that's another company that I rep for and sell stuff for, and they've been really good. They've helped out with giving back. Most of these companies, TFO has a Project Healing Waters for vets to help them to recover from wounds that they've had in war. And
And
they've
they
used
take them out fishing?
Yes, and they used fly fishing to help them, alleviate some of the stress and the
Right.
post-traumatic stress disorders that they suffer from, and they get into the natural environment, and they really have enjoyed that. Another one we have is Casting for Recovery, so it's for women that are survivors of breast cancer.
Wow.
And then we have we do a lot of promotional work for them, and we do it for different charities and raffles and stuff. So,
That's fantastic.
yeah, Rick Pope is the owner of TFO Fly Rods, and he's a wonderful person. He has a really kind heart, and most of the people that you meet in fly fishing are really,
Connected to nature, connected to each other, connected to the world.
Yes, very conscious and socially responsible and willing to give back and try to help and improve society. The gear that I'm wearing, this is Columbia, and you've got a Columbia shirt on too. Columbia is owned by Tim Boyle. He's a Portland, Oregon, and I got to guide him on the island of Palmyra, which is a privately owned island by the Nature Conservancy. And while we were down there, we were fishing for giant trevally. In Hawaii, we call them ulua. And he had caught about a 30-pounder and wanted to catch another one, and he hooked a really beautiful bluefin trevally. They're very brightly, vividly colored. And a shark came in and ate the tail. And he looked at me and he's like, "Oh, I want to save the fish." And I was like, "Forget the fish." And at that point, about 10 sharks showed up, and they were eating the fish up the line to him. And he's kind of short. He's like you. He's about 5'2" kind of thing. So I grabbed his rod out of his hand and hit the sharks in the head like that, and then picked him up and brought him back to the boat. And he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I set him down, and he's like, "What was that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what was that?" "That was a feeding frenzy. You were about to die." And he's like, "Oh, you're my favorite guy." So now I get all this TFO stuff.
And the Columbia
Really
shirts.
cheap. And the Columbia shirt, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Columbia shirts at a discount. So nice. I'm on their guide program as well.
That's really great, though. I mean, you're right. You could get so peaceful and so zen catching your fish that
You don't realize you're in the food chain as well.
Yes.
Yes.
your legs are part of the food chain.
They are, and sharks are part of the environment. We're going to go Friday and catch mako sharks, and they've made a wonderful fishery here in San Diego. And this is where a lot of the juvenile makos are. So the last time we went, we caught 12 in one day, which was pretty spectacular.
Pretty, yeah.
And they've got these gnarly teeth, and they jump and they do backflips, and we just had a great time. Luke made a nice video for us.
Yeah, I have a video of that on my Facebook.
There you go.
Now, what is exciting about catching a shark or a mako shark? I mean, what are you connecting with there when you're catching them?
Oh, they're so primal. First, they come to the boat and have these really dark black eyes.
Really?
And they just, they look like...
They stare you down?
Yeah, they look like evil, right? And you throw a fly that is kind of this color. It basically the same little orange on it. It's about the same color as
coral color?
Yeah, it's about the same color as a life preserver, which makes it kind of interesting.
Ooh, yeah.
And the shark comes in and they bite it, and then they take off about 40 miles an hour, and they do these huge 15-foot backflips.
Wow.
And then you fight them and you bring them close, and then they go and unhook them and let them go, and you see these gnarly teeth, and we take pictures, and like, wow, what a great thing. And people are so afraid of sharks. They think they're just death out there, and they are, but they're also something to be respected and something that we need to preserve. If you look at Palmyra, for example, they used to think that the food chain was like this and that 10% of the biomass was apex predators. But when they did the study at Palmyra, they found it's this way. 60% of the biomass there were giant trevally and sharks. And they went to Kingman Reef and did a study, and they found 80% of the biomass at Kingman Reef, where there's no human contact at all, is apex predators. So
Wow.
The model that they had based on Hawaii was 10%. And what they found is whenever you have human interaction, it takes out the apex predators.
Right, because we're consuming them.
Right. Well, we're taking them out of the equation so that we can
and they
harvest.
have slower reproduction rate.
Yeah, they
and
do.
They last longer. Where the other species, they typically can vary because they die off quick anyways.
Right.
Yeah, or their
right.
lifespan is shorter.
It's shorter,
Yeah.
and they get mopped up, right?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
provide that food source. But it's just amazing if you're in that natural environment how harsh it is. If you if you're a bonefish on the flat and you go off the flat, you're going to get eaten. At Palmyra, they tagged 4,000 bonefish and they never got a single one back. They all got eaten. So if
Wow.
you do anything to change that environment, you're
Hmm.
going to affect it, you know.
Okay.
And that's what we have to understand is how we all are interrelated. And I think being fly fishermen and then experiencing that and appreciating that, and then be willing to ensure that those fisheries are sustainable, you know,
Right.
that it's something that we protect. There's a vested interest in it. And if you don't know about it, you won't care about it.
Right.
So getting out there and fishing and, you know, spending time with your family and sharing those moments and really having joy, but also appreciating your quarry, you know,
Right.
that this is something that needs to be respected. And I think, you know, it's just that ethical practice that transforms into your regular life. You know, you learn to be more patient with people, you learn to appreciate the interactions that you have with them and building those relationships. And, you know,
And be
it's
astute to their needs and what's happening with them also, understanding their perspective.
right,
Yeah.
right. And it's the same in dealing with other people. You know, we
Right.
always look at it from our lens, and it's not being able to take in that entire situation, you know, and being empathetic to that. And I
Right.
think, you know, Luke, when he goes fishing, he loves to be out there and be patient, but man, when he catches a fish, he goes out of his way to make sure that fish is released as quickly as possible, that's back and swimming off. And that gives you a deep satisfaction. You know, learning how to fly cast is a beautiful thing. You know, it takes a while, it takes a lot of practice. Tying your own flies, catching on something that you made, that's another, you know, enjoyment that you get. I think when people start fishing in the beginning, they want to catch the biggest fish or the most fish. And once you start fly fishing, you realize it's not the catching that you're after. It's more that experience of being on the water and then sharing that with others and then just being in tune with that natural environment, you know, and that's where
Yeah.
really the zen of fly fishing is. And, you know, some days you go out and you don't catch a fish, but you had a great time and you saw stuff
Right.
and then you got to go home and figure out, well, what do I need to do? You know,
Right.
how do I crack that code, as it were?
Right.
And so that's the challenging thing I really enjoy about
Or
fishing.
having that relationship with the fish. I mean, thank you for sharing about how you resuscitate a fish. I think that's so neat. I mean, I do that in the hospital with humans, and
Sure.
it's a very different process. So to be very natural with your handling and restoring their vital signs and their life circumstances and reacclimating them to their habitat as we pull them out,
Right. Right.
is really a fantastic process. I really appreciate that. The other time that I had fishing experience was big boat sailboat racing off of Molokai, and
Yeah.
we caught a fish off of a hand line while we were moving slower, and we caught an ono, and it was a 32-pound ono. It was probably about 6 feet long,
Right.
and we boarded the thing on the back end of the cockpit of the boat, and it's very sharp. It has lots of sharp teeth. It moves around. It jacks itself around, and we subdued the fish because we were intending to eat it
Right.
and to have that process. And it's amazing to subdue a fish when you don't have a gaff or other major material. We were using a towel and some winch handles to subdue the fish, and we did, and it was an amazing fish. We brought it into the yacht club and we served it up to everyone there. It fed everybody,
Right.
and then it was an amazing experience. Even doing that is catching a predatory fish or a fish that we're wanting to consume.
Right. But even with them, like when they come in, the Ono, they have these tiger stripes on the back, and then after they pass, when they die, they just turn gray, and you
Right,
can just see the soul of that fish coming out of them. You know, which is
right,
kind of sad. But then that sustenance helps you, and then
right,
you absorb some of that. So you know,
right.
they say we are what we eat,
Yeah.
and you know, if you eat a lot of fish, you live longer. You know,
You become a
and
fish
yeah,
in the
exactly. Well, you
water.
start thinking like a fish too.
Right.
So.
Right. And so it's exciting to be able to really have this experience in La Paz and be at the end of the boat and see you all cast. And what is that difference between casting, so you don't just hold the rod and then throw it? I mean, what do you do at fly fishing that's different?
Well, the line casts the fly. So you have to make a loop and you want it to be graceful and
So
you
you
want
have a
it.
little slack at the end? Is that what you
Well,
do?
you shoot the line. So the line
Okay.
itself weighs, and while you're casting, most people that spin fish break their wrists. So their loops are terrible. So you
Okay.
have to keep your thumb up and keep your elbow on the table, and you just move back and forth.
Okay.
So a lot of people have seen like a river runs through it, and they think, oh, that's looks so cool. I'm going to go try it. And that really was a boom for fly fishing for a while. But people that stay with it, once they learn, then they develop like better techniques, different types of casts. Luke is great at roll casting. He's just a
Yeah.
wonderful roll caster. He loves to roll cast.
What
I
does
have
roll
lots of
casting mean?
So basically, roll casting is when the line is a little bit out,
Mm-hmm.
you're just using the line to cast the line itself.
Okay.
So if the fly is about out at the water, I call this type of cast a ghost cast, where I cast it out somewhat because I don't have things behind me,
Okay.
because you have to bring the line backwards behind you.
If you're going to do
So
a
if
regular
there's
cast,
trees or something behind you and you
Uh-huh.
can't do that,
you get
you can
snagged.
just roll cast it by flicking your wrist forward, and it
Okay.
rolls the line in front of you instead of
And then
throwing it behind
sends
you,
it
you're
further
throwing
out.
it in front of you. So you're throwing the line in front of you, and you can actually double roll cast. You can roll cast, then let more line out, then roll cast again. And I call the second one a ghost cast because you're casting as if you're a ghost, as if you're casting where you're not presently there, you're not standing there. So then you cast it out again, and you can do that while sitting down.
Ooh, that's awesome.
So like you don't. So there's different ways, but it all depends on the wind. Fly fishing is very in tune to your environment because it depends on where you are. If you got trees behind you, if you're on a river and you're casting downstream or you're casting upstream, those are all factors that you have to put into your cast. If you're fly fishing and you see a couple of stumps or a hole that you want to cast into, you might not cast it the first time, the second time, or the third time. So you have to keep trying, get that right perfect cast to hit it. Sometimes if you make a bad cast right away and you snag a tree, you're gonna scare that fish.
Yeah, probably.
So
And a tree too.
it's all about being in the moment. If you can be in the moment and cast the first cast the right one, then you're gonna get that fish probably, and you're gonna get rewarded by being in the moment. That's Zen,
Right.
and that's what fly fishing is really about. If you're using a spin rod, you just boop, you can cast anywhere you want. It's all with the technology of the rod, but with fly fishing, it's about the line and your skill.
So it's your inner technology.
It's your skill.
Yeah.
It's your instincts, and it's what you see with your environment and how you read it.
That's
Like
awesome.
surfing or other things like in nature. It's something you have to read,
Yeah.
especially on a river and especially on an ocean.
Right.
So the target for La Paz is roosterfish, which
Yeah.
is a very unique species. They have a very limited range. And my first time down there, I caught a 60-pound rooster, which
Wow.
was, yeah. After that, the guide
And
said
those
it's
are
all
those
downhill.
big flat fish that have a round body. Is that
They're
right?
in the jack family. They look like an alua, but they're black and white. They're kind of like the punk rockers, and they have this comb that comes up on the top.
Like a
Just
rooster
yes,
comb,
exactly, a
right?
rooster comb.
It's very beautiful.
Beautiful fish, and
And it's kind of silvery color.
yes, they're silver and black, right? Yeah, like an Oakland Raider fish if you had one.
Well,
But,
there you go.
yeah, but they're very strong and they're highly prized, and even the small ones are beautiful, and we just really love those. And no, we don't kill them, and everybody lets them go. So they've all agreed, yeah, we don't take any roosters, and but you're all there
Are
for
they
them.
edible?
They're very poor quality, which
Okay.
helps out too. But
Well, like bonefish. I mean, bonefish are bonefish because they have mostly bones, right?
bonefish have 16 rays of bones on each side, but they eat them, and they eat them in Hawaii, which is sacrilege to me. But yeah, it's hard. But we're doing a lot to convince people, especially the fly fishermen, that maybe this species or any species deserves your respect. And
Right.
it's okay to take what you're going to have for dinner, but don't just rape and pillage.
Right.
Be respectful of because then you hear them, the same guys that are catching all the fish will come back the next week and go, "Where are they all?" And I'm like, "Well, you killed them. It's
Right.
it's
You
stupid."
took out the population.
Right.
Yeah.
So selective harvest is good,
Yeah.
and being responsible.
And what does
But
that mean, selective harvest? Like a medium-sized one or a big-sized one and not a baby one?
well, a lot of fishing that's done is not the wisest. For example, if you're marlin fishing, everyone takes the big marlin, but the big marlin are all females. So you're actually destroying the population of the marlin. The smaller marlin are males, and there's more of them. It's like shooting deer. They shoot the bucks, but they kill the big bucks, and then they wonder why there's no more big deer, so they're ruining that gene pool. If you were catching, redfish in the Gulf, when Paul Prudhomme came up with black and redfish, he pretty much wiped that species out, and then they came back with slot limits. So it's picking a certain size that you can take, and that creates more larger fish and more smaller fish, so it helps that species.
And deciding whether it's male or female too also supports the
It's hard to
propagation.
tell which one is male or female when you're looking at a fish. But,
Right.
for example, a really high-priced fish in Hawaii is a moi. And moi is an interesting fish. It changes sex. It's called sexophilus. And they start out as males, and when they get about 14 inches in length, they turn female.
Wow.
Well, the ones that are legal are over 16 inches. So you're killing all the females again, and they wonder why there's no moi, okay? And it's just,
Right.
it's counterproductive. So, yeah, understanding the species itself when they make rules and when they try to regulate it, I think is important for them. A lot of politicians aren't fishermen. They just say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is how the regulations are going to be. And we're all in favor of licensing and having regulations, but in Hawaii, for example, there's no agencies really to enforce it. So without enforcement, it doesn't matter what the rules are.
But when we have guides like you and other experts and professionals out there, then they can educate the people who are fishing and give them an idea of what.
And I do that. And when I see other people fishing, I tell them what the minimum size is or what the bag limit is, and I try to keep them informed. And I'm doing it in a non-threatening way. And I just warn them, well, it's a $500 fine, and that pretty much changes their mind at that point. They don't want to get caught.
Right.
But I try to express to them, you're a fisherman, you're not a poacher.
Right.
And change that mindset that you have, of being a responsible steward, and that's what you try to encourage with them.
So when we pull up one, we'll say, "Is this okay?"
Your guide will tell you.
Okay,
good to eat. Yes, okay.
Even in Spanish.
In Spanish, sí.
Sí. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for you all sharing the Zen of Fly Fishing and what it means to really participate in our nature and in our world and our oceans and our rivers and lakes to participate in this process.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents look for ways to connect with their children, and this is one where you can actually teach your children. And so I got to teach Luke how to fish, and it's something that we've enjoyed, and we've traveled all over the world together, and it's really, it'll be a great Father's Day, to spend a day on the water again with my son.
And Friday we got our Mako makeovers.
Mako makos, here in San Diego.
Mako makeovers.
Mako makeovers.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's so wonderful to share ocean life and to experience ocean life together and with the ocean and all of the creatures inside of there.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to see. Just a week ago in Hawaii, I was fishing and we pulled up to a buoy and there was a 15-foot whale shark that swam right up to the boat and basically kissed it. And I sent you pictures of it. And my wife's upset I didn't jump in the water and swim with him, but just a beautiful creature and very docile and so magnificent. So, yeah, there's all these gifts that you get when you're out in the natural environment. Right. And you just have to be open and in tune and try to see that and appreciate it, And I think a lot of people in their day-to-day lives rush through things and miss that. They don't get to calm down and, be one with natural flow and, understand how the fish think and how the environment works,
right.
And that's something that comes from fly fishing. So.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Wow. Well, thank you all for both joining us, and
our pleasure.
We look forward to, reading about articles and seeing different things that you're doing throughout the year in the different spaces and places that you fly fish throughout the world. It's so beautiful and such an opportunity to share with our families.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and have a beautiful day and experience fly fishing in your environment.
Aloha.
Thank you all for listening to this podcast. We are so grateful for you tuning in and experiencing the innovations and opportunities we all can incorporate into our daily lives. Connect with us at centerforconsciouskids.com to sign up for the latest news that showcases these revolutionary services and products. Our global website provides families with an online conduit for enrichment and transformation in all our lives. Please share with other kids and families who would enjoy these advancements in living consciously. I'm Ashley Lee, and I thank you so much for joining us.